Today we're here with Technical Liaison Officer with the teams, Stefano Cattai. Stefano, welcome to BMC TV.
Thank you.
And please tell us, first of all, a little bit your background. You're an ex-professional rider. You retired in 2001, and now you've been how many years with BMC?
I did start to work with BMC in 2004, so at least 16 years now.
And 16 years, how the time passes quickly.
Yeah.
And your role, most of all, and I speak from a pro rider's point of view, a pro rider on a BMC, you're the face of the company from a pro rider's perspective. Material, equipment, everything between the professional teams, and whether that's triathlon, road, and the company, you're the go-between liaison between the two different worlds, let's say, correct?
Yes, correct. I'm the technical liaison, so everything is concerning discussing materials. I'm discussing with the team themselves, which is on both sides, so it's really helpful because as you former rider, you know very well, sometimes the language of the riders is different from the language from the engineers. So you have just a little bit to understand the needs for both sides and just to connect the both sides together.
Fabian Cancellara mentioned that his process towards winning Paris Roubaix started after the previous year's Paris Roubaix. This year, for example, with NTT Cycling, when did that work start for you?
It's correct. It's a never stop a project. So as soon as that you realize something, you are starting to think to the next one. And that's it. And that's a part of my job, just to collect in different moments. That's make important to be at the race, to be on the fact, actually, when the guys come and say that's, oh, this could be a good idea for the next time. And so you collect different ideas and you propose and you start and you consider if there is a concept behind, makes sense, doesn't make sense, why not, why yes. And that's it. That's what's going on. That's correct. You never stop to think about the races.
And the main testing session that NTT did, which peer review was that, when they went and actually rode the sections of cobbles? Not the test, they have their final test, of course, in the days leading up to the week of the race, but they also include another big testing session in, was it February?
Yes, exactly. It was February, coming back from the first races, because as well, one thing is if you have, depend what you have to test, but in this case, you have really to consider that you are looking about the performance and the high level of performance. So riding in the cobbles, 50 km per hour is not that you can do you have to be really in good shape. And even from condition that could be similar to what you have to find in this date from the race. So that was scheduled exactly after the first races coming back for the guys to the season, and we figure out if windows and the beginning of February, yes, to connect us.
The week before the race, how many changes to looking at across the whole team? I know some riders, they decide what they want and they don't change anything. Others maybe last minute make changes. How many riders make changes in the days leading up to the race? Of course, the little changes depending on the weather of the day, maybe tire pressures, if it's raining or if it's not raining, there's little changes like that. But are any riders making changes in the last week before Paris-Roubaix?
Well, depend of course of the different kind of the athletes, of the riders. Of course, you consider what for races, so the condition, weather condition, the course, how many shoes you have for make sense to have in different materials. So you prepare already the parts from the mechanics, what they have to be prepared with the materials and with the action they have to do with the bikes. And the other side, you have to understand the riders, which is the mental aspect is really, really important. You just were really, really objective, considering all aspects, and was really easy with you, working with you. But other guys are really more emotional. So you have to understand how you prepare the message, how you prepare the purpose of materials. And after, you have to understand if you are making stress or making in relaxes and confident. The first goal is to have the riders confident that he is using the best materials for this day.
Well, I'll say thank you from my part as a rider, but so you're a technical liaison officer and a little bit of a psychologist as well. Okay, compliments. Another skill set that I didn't know was available. The aerodynamic aspects and the choices that the team made after the testing were quite surprising, I thought.
Yes and no, because of course that if you start to think on the aspect in your related area, you are thinking just time trial. You are just thinking about flat races or normal races, and Roubaix, that's always the focus on the comfort on the cobbles. On my time was a guy riding with RockShox forks and this kind of special bikes with a suspension, even rear suspension. But and then the technology now that allow you with to have frames that really have a vertical compliance and the lateral stiffness, which make a really good difference in the stability and in the absorbing shocks, but as well have reactive bicycle when you are riding on the tarmac, when you're sprinting or you're attacking and whatever. That's make the difference. So you have just to consider that you can be performant as well in the bad surfaces. And our bikes, they are developing in this direction. So that's and we have just to consider that we never try to convince guys before to make the test on the material. So we are really, really neutral about it, just hearing the feedback for the guys coming back after riding. So not objective tests regarding numbers, which I'm more confident, but in this kind of the test, we use in a subjective aspect, just heard about the riders because they are on the cobbles, and as you know, every rider has a different approach about the technique, and you have to hear how he's feeling with what they are riding. And who did the test was really matching 100% on the same opinion that the aero bike was really the best choice maybe for the race.
A lot of work goes into
exactly.
not just Paris Roubaix, but of course a lot of other races. A little curiosity: riders for Paris Roubaix, some of the little modifications that riders make. Some have time go by, double handlebar tape. Now we have the suspension gels under the handlebar tape, tyre choices. Any particularities that you noticed that in the NTT cycling team, any of the riders used that you thought were quite particular set up for Paris Roubaix?
Really particular, not. Everyone has some special things related to the disease. Someone want to have double tape, someone not. Someone want to have the direction of the cobbles on the stem, someone not. It's a mix about technology and the motion there behind. So that's it's a special day. It's a little bit like you go to the war and you have in the battles and you have really prepared to get out in the best condition.
I think Paris Roubaix is the battle of the war. One of the certainly the most exciting battles to watch, at least as a spectator in the what is the war of the cycling season. Stefano, I think I'd say thank you very much for your time and very, very interesting. Of course, Paris Roubaix now the date's been shifted. Do we need to prepare something particular? If Paris Roubaix does run in 2020, it might be running the snow this year.
It's difficult to tell now. Even if yesterday UCI come with a calendar, which is a proposal calendar, I think the big goal now is to start. And if it start in 2020 or 21, important is to start. And when we are not in the races, that will be good.
For the most part, most of the homework's already done. Thank you very much, Stefano, and please stay safe, stay healthy.
You are welcome. You too. Thank you.
Moving on from the technical side and BMC side, we go to the NTT Pro Cycling. Lars Michaelsen has a lot of Paris Roubaix experience, both as a rider and as a director. Let's hear from Lars.
Paris Roubaix is very, very special. So you need to understand the race.
Thank you for joining us today. Lars, Sports Director at NTT Cycling and past Paris Roubaix. You've been twice in the top 5, so I'll say you're a Paris Roubaix specialist.
Yeah, thank you, Karel. Thanks for the introduction and a pleasure to be with you guys here, BMC. Yeah, so I think a little bit like yourself, you know, cycling is under my skin, whether that be from an early age, trying to look up to the big stars back in the 80s, 90s, or yeah, passing pro myself back in 1994. So just a little bit on that. I experienced 14 years as a professional cyclist, and coming from Denmark, of course, we have no climbs. So in terms of quality skills, I think we are good at crosswind sections and putting the hammer down when it's flat, and therefore, of course, adding a little bit of cobblestones to that, it doesn't hurt from our perspective mostly. Yes, Paris Roubaix certainly has been a very exciting part of my career, both as a active cyclist, but also as a sports director. It's there's some myth about this race. It is one of the monuments on the whole season, and I think everybody who have experienced it from a TV screen or have been lucky themselves to stand there understands that it's one of a kind, and certainly one of a kind in many ways.
And what's been speaking with Stefano Catai earlier, who of course is a go-between between BMC the company and the NTT cycling team. The biggest developments when we go back from the RockShox in 1994, I remember the dial on the top, having had a mountain bike background, and then going through where we've gone to aerodynamic bikes but didn't have clearance. We were going from very narrow tires, racing on 21mm tires. 23mm tires was considered large, to where we are today, and the technology that the progress in carbon fiber manufacture that's allowed us to come to what Eddie came to a choice this year, an aerodynamic bike that's smooth on the cobbles. It has large tires, which helps, of course, with its compliance, because one thing with aerodynamics I think is often underestimated is also the synthesis between the wheel, the tire, and the frame, and how well that fits. Of course, Paris Roubaix, and if it's going to be muddy, you also need a certain amount of clearance, which goes against the aerodynamic aspects. But now, thanks to collaboration, wheel manufacturers, wide rims, tire producers, manufacturers, in our case Vittoria, wide tires, maybe specific casing for Paris Roubaix for puncture resistance, and then being able to build a carbon fiber bike which fits in with the UCI rules, which is aerodynamic. Bringing all these things together is where we come to. And then you are going to your testing session with Eddie in February. You go there, you see the cobbles. May I ask, did you ride all the sections of cobbles proposed for the race? Did you ride some of them? How did the valuable parts of the testing session progress?
Yeah. To kind of describe that that process we went through was actually coming back in the December camp. I pushed hard on performing these tests, and together with both Simone Toccafondi and Stefano Catai, obviously luckily we had the same aim, I would say, to kind of go through the combination, and that's exactly what you're saying. And they are not 117 solution how to find out. The one solution is to go there, really to go there, be in the environment, and we didn't try out. It was not a reconnaissance of the Paris Roubaix course. It was to find a balance between having cobblestones and good cobblestones, bad cobblestones, and tarmac. Because as you know, the race is 255 kilometers long. You might have 50 to 55 kilometers on cobblestones, but you still have 200 kilometers on tarmac. So we all went in there with open mind and having 5 platforms from BMC bikes. We had a SLR, we had a SLR rim brake, then we had a TMR and a TMR with a special longer fork, and then we had a road machine, which also is a kind of a mix between a gravel and a, I wouldn't say a cyclocross bike, but yeah, a road machine. Anyway, and we gave Michael Gogol, our Austrian rider, and Edvald Borsenhagen from Norway, we gave them exactly that starting point, that it was up to them. We were providing the platforms. We were putting in the combination with the wheels, the tires, might that be tubulars or tubeless, and then running through session in rain on, like I said before, on good cobblestones, on bad cobblestones, and swapping around the wheels, and most of all having an analysis every time they finish a stretch. They would then adjust the tire pressure to the next run, and they would give a feedback straight on. So Michael Gogol would give a feedback to Stefano Catai on a ratio from 1 to 10 on different aspects, and so would Edvald Borsenhagen do with Tocafondi, Simone, and that way we were really. It is time consuming. I mean, one thing is that you're out there in the field, and it takes 2 days, and it really feels like, wow, this takes time, you know. But going backwards, what we did beforehand took a lot of time to get the protocols in place, to make sure, like you said before, that we had Vittoria providing what we needed, the NV wheels the same, and having everybody there in place. So it is bigger than it looks like, but it's for me it's really interesting, and I think it creates a genuine feeling between the partners. I mean, the suppliers, BMC, NV, Vittoria, the riders, the mechanics, that, you know, we're not just sticking our finger in the air and say what direction does the wind blow from. No, we really have a background now to move on. And okay, now we'll have Paris Roubaix 2020 possibly on the 25th of October. So we still have time.
We have time. I don't know what the weather's going to be. We're hoping we're going to have a Paris Roubaix one. There's going to be a very interesting one for unpredictable weather conditions, and people probably don't realise. I think when you're watching on TV and there's the dust and the sun shining in the green fields in April and February, it's not quite like that out there, and on the little farm roads between the outskirts of Paris and to the velodrome in Roubaix. Interestingly, you tested even what by now is almost considered old school, a rim brake, light frame, the BMC team machine with rim brakes. That's really a bike that I would consider by today's standards specifically for mountaintop finishes. You went with the aero bike, the TMR, BMC TMR, Time Machine Road, and then you also said you had a longer fork on the TMR. This is, I assume, is for more stability on the cobbles. What was the rider's feedback on that?
Yeah, so it has been on earlier editions and manufacturers from the bike industry it has been an add-on to get that longer range in the fork, to get that stability, because what you want to do is to push your pedals while you are on the cobblestones, kind of sitting well back in your saddle, and have a stable bike where you don't need to focus too much on the handling. Your arms need to, of course, be attached to the handlebar, but it's not like you have to sit tight with your arms and your hands on it. So that was the reason why we also with BMC tried out a longer range in the fork to see if that could add on some more comfort to the riders. Well, it turned out not to be, in this case, from the TMR, and a big issue and a big advantage. So the riders actually said, no, the original TMR with the range of that fork is perfect for us.
With my own testing with the Time Machine Road, it's already quite, it's very stable because it's designed for higher speeds anyway. So I would, without riding the cobbles, I would agree with the longer, slacker fork, or what slackens the head angle, probably isn't necessary on something like the TMR because it is already quite a little bit longer. Interesting that you mentioned you had a road machine there as well. For those who don't know, the road machine is my choice of bike after I stopped racing. It's a little bit between, I'd say a high performance endurance bike would be my description of it. Did Eddie have a chance to ride that?
Yeah, so both Edvald Boasson-Hagen and Michael Gogol tried that, and they were in this instance they were quite sure that this wouldn't be the one suitable for the cobblestones in their perspective, and that's of course keeping in mind that when you ideally hit the cobblestones in Paris Roubaix, you go with 40 km per hour over the cobblestones. So it's a ratio where you need. It might be that the road machine, if you move on 15 to 20 kilometers an hour, is adapted. But when you're racing, you need more power into the bike going forward.
And I think the very underestimated aspect of Paris Roubaix is the importance to position to get onto the cobbles. Nearly every section of cobbles before it is like a lead out for a sprint, and there it's much faster than 40 kilometers an hour, which is of course where any aerodynamic advantage is going to be more than welcomed.
There's a good story. Well, good story. It was a bad story for me. It was my last Paris Roubaix, and it was in fact my last race of being a pro cyclist. So 2007 Paris Roubaix. Stuart O'Grady wins the race. He joins the lead where I'm in with 22 kilometers to go in Sissoin on the cobblestones there, and he came up with Stefan Wesemann, and Stefan Wesemann, he goes straight to the front pulling, and Stuart was sitting behind and waiting for the moment, and he attacked. And I was his teammate, CSC at the time, and I was of course loyal to him, and I was expecting the other riders to try to chase him down. They tried, but they were dead. So back to my incident, then I had a half flat tire on my back wheel, so it was just going out little by little by little, and I was like, if I stop now, I will have to wait for the commissar to let my team car pass all the dropped riders. That would take 1 minute. I don't want that. And then I knew at Carrefour de l'Arbre, with 15 kilometers to go, so we're talking 2007, that we had a mechanic there with fresh bikes. So Christophe de Simpeler, a Belgian mechanic, was there with fresh bikes. We could do that at the time. We could change from the side of the road. It's not possible anymore. It has to come from the roof of the team director's car. So I said to myself, you can make it. You have to make it. And I was, every corner, I was like adjusting. It was a back wheel puncture, adjusting my speed, not to crash, but it seemed to hold on enough air so I could make it to Carrefour de l'Arbre, which I did. And what I forgot in that instant you're referring to is that I was focused on keeping the speed and going to Carrefour de l'Arbre. And I was forgetting a bit when I changed the bike that those bikes were with high profile carbon wheels. At that time we were alu rims, and they were pumped up to the maximum out of the idea from Bjarne and say, you get a fresh bike like in cyclocross, you have very little cobblestones on the last 15 kilometers. This will be an advantage for you guys. So I jump on that bike, a little bit, energetic, I would say, and I go into the next cobblestones just after Carrefour de l'Arbre. You have Cruson, where we actually did some of the testing now. Anyway, and there's a small corner, and I was just too fast on that corner. So with the hard pump wheels, I was just skidding out. And in the end of that situation, I had to wait for my bike number 3. So bike number 1 punctured. I take bike number 2, I crash on it, and I have to wait for the car with bike number 3. So it was not very good. And I see, before the car comes up, I see all these 50 riders passing me, sitting in a position being a top 3, more or less certainly. And while they pass, one of the I think after 35-40 riders past me is Fabian Cancellara. And Fabian sees the situation. We were normally going into that race with him as a champ, as a captain, but he had a 2007 fight with some Bonen, so they were kind of putting each other in check, and that's why we were going up the road and making the race. So Fabian, he waits a little bit on me. I get my bike number 3 on and going. And we do like a Trofeo Baracchi, a team time trial in 2. And from position 50, I would say, we catch on back, and I finish my last race of the career as number 11.
Thank you very, very much for your time, Lars, and your insight. And let's all hope, all of us at BMC, all of us, I think, at NTT, and everyone around the world who follows cycling is hoping that Paris Roubaix will go ahead in October. I hope it doesn't snow, although it would make for great TV if it does. I'm very sorry for the riders. But most of all, thank you very much for your time, and please stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you.